Oh, sorry,
No,
Bob.
go ahead.
It's just about 8:30. It's time to start the meeting. Ed called me and he did say that he was going to be late, but he said to go ahead without him and we'll catch him up when he gets here.
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay. So thank you everybody for emailing out the numbers on the insurance piece. And Jen, would you like to go over the minutes?
Absolutely. When we last met, we reviewed that we needed to evaluate a number of plans. So Ken was going to review and pull together numbers for Harvard Pilgrim. Ed was going to evaluate staying with Aetna and keeping the plan as is, and then I was supposed to pull together the numbers from evaluating Anthem, and Bob was going to look into the pros and cons of self-insurance, and then everybody had agreed to email out their numbers by Wednesday for today's meeting. And then together today, our goal was to evaluate how we want to, or brainstorm about how we want to evaluate those options forward.
Okay.
So just to throw out there, because I know in my email there were some numbers that were missing. I was still trying to get some detail together for the group. But I just have to let you know that doing a self-insurance, we're a very small company. The cost is very cost prohibitive. The one problem that I see is that it increases the deductibles for employees exponentially, and it just makes it very unaffordable for them. And the cost to the company and the liability to the company. I think we had talked once before about the dangers of self-insurance and what could happen if we have a big claim. So I just move that we move this off the table. Are you guys okay if we just don't pursue the self-insurance option any longer?
I am. I read the evaluation you sent, and I agree that those numbers look too high to take on that risk for the minimum benefit that it might potentially give to the employees. But I think it was good that you did the research, because I feel comfortable that we are doing diligence with making sure we've looked at all the options.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
I agree.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I had looked at Harvard Pilgrim, and the problem with that one is just that it's not an apples to apples comparison. That there's quite a few different things in the plan. I know quite a few of the doctors are actually they're just very different, especially because it's a lot of a Boston sort of influence on the doctor's connection. So those are things I think we're really going to have to evaluate, comparing to some of the other options we have. So. Although it's a lower rate, it's it's about 2% lower than what we've seen. But at this point, I think we just need to compare, in contrast with what we have on the table.
Okay, and then I evaluated Anthem, and that one is a pretty radically different plan as far as the coverage amounts. That so it looks like. The deductible may stay the same, but the coverage percentage is a lot different. And the doctor network was the same, and it represents a very similar increase to what we're currently looking at with staying with Aetna.
And I actually went through and reviewed last year's claims to see why are they looking at this increase. There was nothing that was really too far out of the ordinary or much that anyone didn't expect. I mean, we did have 2 pregnancies last year, so that definitely had an increase,
right.
or really dipped into what we were paying in. My vote, or what I'm looking at is, and this is for me, I would like to see the company just cover the increase and stay with Aetna. I mean, I like my doctor. I don't know if it's going to be covered under this. I don't want to pay anymore. I just want to keep what we have, and company should have to cover this.
But I don't see it that way, Ed. What I see is that we have to actually take a look at this from the company's perspective. We gave a fairly sizable raise last year, and I think that after 20 plus years of shouldering the expense for employees, that maybe we need to ask them now. Maybe it's time that we ask that the employees shoulder some of this cost.
But this is something that would come out of the blue some people may not be able to afford that. I know I know I'm going to have to curtail some things. I don't want to have to do that. I don't think that that's my response.
Yeah, but I think that we talked to them well in advance to let them know that we're here looking at plans. I think that it's if you watch the news, it's not a surprise to people to know that premiums are going up and people are losing their jobs, and I think that we have to make these tough calls. That's why we're here.
Ed and Bob, I can see your perspective and I can see your perspective, Bob, and I think they're both valid points, and I think we need to keep both options on the table in the discussion.
Okay.
Fair enough. I wanted to mention something too. Over the last week or so, I think some information is getting to some of the employees, and in the lunchroom, there's a lot of concern with what's happening, and there's a lot of uncertainty as well. So, at some point, they need to be in the loop, or and given some information to understand what we're going through.
Right, and that's an excellent point. And I think maybe what would help us with this decision, and maybe help, is just have a focus group. Why not bring some of the staff together
Yeah.
and hear some of the long-term folks, some of the newer folks,
Yeah.
and just say here's what we're up to. We need your feedback before we
Right.
can go further.
Right.
I think that's a great idea, Bob. Does anybody have any ideas how we would go about
I
doing
know the
these
IT
folks?
department's done electronic surveys in the past. Maybe that's something they could put together.
So would you want to do a face-to-face focus group or an electronic survey? I guess that's our question.
How much time do we have? I mean, what's the time constraints for us?
Okay. We need a decision realistically in 3 weeks. So maybe if we probably should have all of the surveys or face-to-face interviews, whatever we decide we're going to do, 2 weeks out. I think that's a reasonable deadline to compile that information.
And I can put all those numbers together just so we can compare everything side by side to give us all a better perspective of what we're looking at. Maybe there's
Well,
something.
Ed, hold on. I'm glad you're talking about your numbers, but we're talking about the survey. So we're getting some feedback from the staff. What do you think about that, Ed? About getting feedback from the staff?
I think that's a great idea.
How would you suggest doing it, though?
I think we could do. I would say maybe doing an online survey, but having the numbers there, and I can put all that together.
Oh, so that's what you're saying. You're saying then give them some supporting numbers right now.
Right.
So
Give them the
can
supporting numbers now so that everyone
I'm
understands where we're going, where we're coming from.
The electronic version is much faster. So
Right.
we could, we just don't have that face-to-face dialogue with
Right.
the staff. But the electronic version is faster, and since my item's been taken off the table, Ed's very good at the IT portion of things. I'm more than willing to help you out, Ed, and put the survey together.
Okay, great.
Is everybody comfortable with the survey as the method to
Yeah.
move
I
forward?
think so.
I'm good with
I
that.
think that works.
We're getting to be towards the end of the meeting time. I know we all have a 9:15. So does everyone agree that the survey is the right way to go?
Yeah, I definitely think so.
I think as considering our time constraints,
Yeah.
I think that's the most economical way to go.
I think the employees will be, be happy that they played a part in this as well, and what we considered their thoughts too.
So Ed, I heard you say that you'd be willing to go ahead and put the numbers together in a side-by-side comparison.
Yeah, I
that we
can put
can
the
provide
numbers.
to the-
Absolutely.
Okay, great. And then Bob, I heard you offer to put together the survey to go out. And Ken, did I hear you say you'd like to help Bob with that?
Absolutely will. Yep.
Okay, so for the next meeting then, Ed, when do you think you can put that?
I can probably have that together. Today's Monday. I can probably have that all together by Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can get a bunch of questions to you. We did a survey a while back, so I can copy some of those.
Okay.
Just tweak them for insurance purposes.
Right.
And also just to be clear, as far as I heard what you had